It's 9 minutes to 8.
Can the government be trusted to behave decently towards the victims of what has been described as the worst treatment failure in the history of the NHS? The failure was the use of blood contaminated with HIV and hepatitis C imported from America in the 1970s and 80s. Thousands of people were infected and many died. There's an inquiry about that that's about to get underway, but today we're being told by one campaigner that he's discovered vital files of information have been lost or perhaps stolen. We'll hear from him in a moment. Let's talk briefly, though, to Hugh, our health editor. And I mean, everyone accepts, doesn't it? It was an appalling failure. There have been inquiries before, Hugh. Why is this one different?
Well, Justin, those inquiries before included one in Scotland and Lord Penrose, and it was dismissed as a whitewash by campaigners because it hadn't really got to the bottom of everything that had happened UK-wide. This all happened before devolution, and Jason Evans, the campaigner who you're about to talk to, will argue that that inquiry and another one held earlier in England just couldn't get to all the documents because, as he's discovered, some of them were taken out from two government departments by staff and not returned. There's been a suspicion for years amongst campaigners, victims and families that there was some sort of cover-up going right back to when this scandal began to happen in the 1970s and 80s. The government line for many years was that some files had been destroyed by mistake, but others had all been made available and published. And the argument here is that even as recently as last year, it seemed that 950 files couldn't be traced. Jason Evans, the campaigner whose father contracted HIV because of this, he did a Freedom of Information inquiry and discovered an internal government audit had found that actually these files had gone away to different staff and had not been found. Now, the departments in question, Health and Education, are saying they think they've accounted for most of them, but not all. And when the inquiry begins again under Sir Brian Langstaff in April, I think the return of documents, gathering evidence, will be one of the crucial issues. Have they really all been made available to the inquiry by Whitehall?
Right. OK, Hugh, thank you very much. And let's talk now to Jason Evans, who, as Hugh was saying, Jason Evans' father died in 1993, having contracted hepatitis and HIV. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
And this was your effort, wasn't it? The thing that we're talking about today, or the reason why we're talking about it today, is you have made an effort to find out about these documents, to get this report made public, and you have now managed to do that.
Sure. Well, I mean, it all began for me in 2016, and I began to visit archives, and I was making lists of publicly available files, and it soon became clear to me that there were gaps in the lists I was making. And between September 2017 and the beginning of 2018, I made around 130 Freedom of Information requests to the Department of Health. In the June, this internal audit began, and it's took about 4 or 5 months of battling to actually get my hands on this report. They denied it to me initially. They said it wasn't in the public interest to provide it.
Really? They just wouldn't provide it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They were saying it wasn't in the balance of public interest.
Because, I mean, the amazing thing is that the government has apologised, and we've had an official apology for all of this. You would have thought at this stage they would want you to know what was going on.
Well, I probably think they don't, to be honest. I mean, when you look at this scandal, I mean, to be clear, blood was never imported into this country. What was imported was a plasma-derived medicine called Factor 8, and it's killed over 1,500 people in terms of confirmed deaths in this country. And that will be, I mean, in terms of the death toll, that will be certainly the biggest loss of life incident in living memory for many people.
But if there is going to be a thoroughgoing inquiry, which the government says there is, if there is going to be an apology which has been given, it just beggars belief, doesn't it, that they might still be trying to hide things?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would certainly allege there's a cover-up that's been going on for decades and continues.
But do you think it's still going on? I mean, that's the point, isn't it? There's no question things were covered up in the past. But you think now that, for instance, with these files, they have been taken deliberately in order that people can't find out about who made decisions?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it wasn't for the assistance of Des Collins and Daniel Holliday at Collins Solicitors, we never, would have come as far as we have. I think the cover-up is more than certainly ongoing, and we have to be clear that it's not, or I don't believe it's necessarily ministers and prime ministers and MPs. It are those civil servants that, where governments change with elections, they remain the same, and I believe it's those senior civil servants behind the scenes that have kept this going.
The government, as Hugh Pym was saying, the government says the majority of the files, these are the missing files, have now been accounted for and they are working to locate the rest. Do you believe that?
I think at this stage they probably are. I think really the jig is up for them at this point. But I have to say that, the Department of Health, they consistently claim they're trying to be transparent, and they say now, they've waived legal privilege in terms of the inquiry, but that's only in regard to litigation that is not ongoing, and so we'll never get to the full truth unless they also waive their what they call legal privilege to all litigation and all parts of this scandal, which I really think they need to do. And I think the other thing I'd really like to see as a result of this coming to light is an apology, and I don't think it's wrong to say this should be from the Prime Minister, given that 1,500 people have died. And I also noticed Boris Johnson's on later on. I think it would be very interesting to hear what he thinks about all this.
Jason Evans, thank you.